first to the floor here. Pierce comes up with it. Hit the deck, first to the floor, making every big play for the Celtics today. Tatum knocks it away, trying to get it. Dives. What a play by Dave Coward. Watch him dive for the ball right here. Look at this hustle.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. We're here to, thankfully, talk about Celtics winning Game 3 down in Miami. Alongside me, as always, Wayne Spooney and Jake Eisenberg. How's it going, guys?
It's going a hell of a lot better today than it was 2 days ago. I can tell you that much.
The mood has improved.
Yes.
Sphincters have unclenched, which I was just thinking before I came out here. I was on the balcony, coffee, been up since 4 a.m, trying to get my head fresh for this one. I'm like, as nice as it is to have the sphincters feeling, looser, I think they should just try and remain clenched. I think everybody, including the players, just keep that feeling of desperation, because that's what I think we all need to maintain.
That would be my message to the team as well. Clench those sphincters. It certainly doesn't need to be said among our circles. Certainly,
right.
I think a small moment of reprieve and back to full clench until we're at least up by a surplus of 2 games. So coming out of this one, obviously the win, 20-point win, 104-84. The takeaway from all of the post-game presses, Spoonie, was we didn't make any adjustments. We just played harder. Do you actually agree with that?
So I think maybe it depends on how you define the word adjustment, right? I think they certainly played differently than they did in game 2. We were okay with Porzingis switching some, but I still think we tried to avoid it pretty hard, and he was in drop a lot, and Al was in drop some. So I do think part of it was let's just kind of close out, guys, right? That's not an adjustment I think an NBA player or coach would really think of. Not that they wouldn't think of it, but they probably wouldn't refer to that as an adjustment. That's just playing harder, playing smarter. Offensively, though, Tatum was way more involved as a ball handler and as the primary creator. And I think maybe it's hey, we do these 5 to 10 things on offense. It's not an adjustment to do numbers 6, 8, and 10 more often than you do 1, 2, and 3. It's just that's what the game is calling for. It's not we're upending our scheme and or doing some crazy matchup stuff or hey, Al Horford, you're the point guard. It's not massive adjustments. So I think they're probably being a little coy and a little that's Joe's personality. What adjustments? Here's my favorite town. I think there's a little bit of that because there definitely were things that were different. But I don't think it was toss it all out the door. Let's man up, switch everything. It's the Udoka style defense this game. It definitely wasn't that, but I think there were tweaks that were really effective tweaks.
Yeah. Is it an adjustment to give the ball more to Jayson Tatum? I guess Joe's what's your definition of adjustment? I guess, media people. And so to him, it's no, that's just in the flow of the offense. Tatum decided to be more aggressive at certain times. But yeah, that was Tatum and Derrick, I thought, at times throughout the game, being more aggressive offensively. And we talked about it with Greeny a little bit, defensive adjustments. Do you want to see them go to a switch everything? Or is it really we know that they're some of the best screen navigators in the NBA. We know that they had the second best defense in the league by playing a predominantly drop defense for most of the year. And they just played it better. That's often a lot what happens in the playoffs. One game, one player or one thing doesn't seem like it's working. It's you look at the film, it's you can get to this spot before that guy. You can contest that shot better. And we sit back here being oh no, these things didn't work. But it's sometimes one guy, or a team or a coach just brought the fight to the Celtics more so in the second game. Yes, they closed out on shooters a lot more. That was probably the biggest adjustment. It was okay, sure, we're not going to play the we dare you to make shots game. We're going to force you to take tough stuff. We're going to run you off the line a lot more. That's the biggest thing is we're not going to just dare Caleb Martin to go 4 for 5 because we're sick of him.
We're sick
of him saying fine and actually doing it.
Yeah, which is still an adjustment of one's approach, of one's mindset. Sure, it's not an X's and O's adjustment, but to come out with a renewed approach and effort, I think it was the necessary adjustment. And you guys talked about it with Greeny. Jalen talked about during his walk-off interview the importance of getting the first punch. We saw that in game 1. Came out early, went on a massive 14-0 run or whatever it was, and we never gave up the lead from that point. It was a similar approach in this game, although it had more of a classic playoff game feel, early on. Basically the whole game, with the exception of the second quarter, buckets were hard to come by and had that really gritty playoff feel, which is great if you're winning because deficits feel larger than they are because you know the effort that's required to make those deficits up. But Jalen talked about the importance of getting that first punch, and the Heat actually got some pretty good, open-ish looks early in the first few minutes of the game. Jovic took the first shot open-ish, like a contest, but plenty of airspace within the context of the shots made in game 2 for him to hit that. And then second shot, double pin down. Actually, a really cool play. It was Bam is the second screener right near the top of the arc, and Hero is positioned as the first screener closer to the corner. But then as Jovic goes to run by that Hero screen, he quickly stops and repositions himself as the first screener. And suddenly Hero is running off those screens. He comes off that second band screen, plenty of space. It had Drew and Jalen just completely lost defensively. So much space, but he misses the shot, which is one that he hits 9 times out of 10 in game 2. And we just got lucky there. Meanwhile, on the other end, and this kind of leads into the other adjustment, which was just KP's mindset on both ends. KP's hitting alley-oop dunks, he's hitting open threes, and actually generating offense for us. While we're kind of getting lucky, I think, to begin with, that the Heat didn't hit with that first punch. And then sticking with the adjustments, KP defensively, KP and Al did such a good job in drop defense, and we're switching all the off-ball screens, but we're playing drop on that 1-5 pick and roll, the Hero Bam pick and roll, and our chasers of the ball handler going over the screen and trailing the ball handler. Al and KP just did such a good job, long Latvian arms out, containing the ball handler. And then KP, I want to get to his main adjustment, staying down on the Bam pump fakes, just getting good contests, those long Latvian stems up in the air, troubling Bam. You see him get sort of exponentially frustrated as the game went on. And just what a response from KP overall. But defensively, I thought in particular, he just did such a good job in this one.
Yeah, one thing on the screen navigation. So, full disclosure, I was a little intoxicated watching this game yesterday. So my main takeaway was happiness.
Let's go, dude.
we can live with that.
I rewatched a good amount of it today, just because I was like, I gotta kind of refresh my mind on what was happening in this game. This may have happened. I don't think it happened a lot, but it seems like sometimes Bam cheats and his illegal screens get so high up because he moves. We just kind of ducked under it a couple times, and you don't really lose out. You're not kind of giving up a pull-up jumper in that case because Bam is moving out of the way almost. So you just duck under it really quick. Not that soft, I'll just let you go over the screen and, it's Ish Smith, so go ahead and take a pull-up three. But an aggressive going under, and that seemed to work a couple times. And I think it's a good adjustment against Bam setting every single time he sets a screen, it's illegal. So that was just one little thing I noticed that, it just makes sense when you see it, but it's not something you think about well, just go under if he's going to keep moving almost out of the way. So and I forget where I was going to go with that. So Jake, please save me here.
Well, no, I think talking about KP in the defense, but I noticed that a lot.
There we go.
I think talking about how the playoffs are emotional and trying to figure out how certain things are actually playing out can be difficult, I find, in the playoffs because the analytical mind tends to be gone in the midst of the chaos here. But if we want to quantify it by the amount of times I screamed at the screen about Bam moving screens, way less in game 3 than any of the other two games, which probably speaks to your point. It's okay, one, are we just getting more comfortable with how he's setting screens and we're getting over them better? But also it's okay, yeah, if he is going to come up and he's going to lean, that's going to leave a couple inches the other way. And yeah, they did go under a few more screens and they're just, getting more comfortable. It is just culture shock. I remember talking about this before the series last year. Miami just plays in a way that's really physical and really different to a lot of other teams. And you come out of the regular season in a period where you just haven't had to really focus and haven't had to deal with the level of physicality that Bam and the Heat bring. So it took you, because Derrick White got clobbered in game 1 at the end of that game by that moving screen. Or game 2, there was just like one of the most egregious moving screens by Bam. He looks like an offensive lineman. Looks like Cole Strange for the Patriots moving to get Derrick White. And this game definitely didn't feel that as much. With KP though, take those bumps, stand out, stay down. Bam isn't tall. He's like 6'8", 6'9". KP 7'3" with the plus wingspan. At one point, Bam had him under the basket, and KP just kept his arms up, and he still got a finger on the ball after Bam put it up. It's like, just make those shots difficult. And Bam, eventually, he's not going to make every single mid-range jumper, and water found its level there.
Yeah, definitely. We're recording our first playoff edition of our Underrated Plays series after we wrap up this pod, and KP's defense on Bam is going to feature heavily in that one. It's such a good indicator of how locked in this team is to watch them on the defensive end, and we've kind of covered the pick and roll coverage, but Scram switching as well. Like Luke Cornett played 5 minutes. There was one instance where off ball, Peyton Pritchard got caught up on Bam Adebayo, who, by the way, Scal can't say his name. It's Bam Adebayo, like Credence, Born on the Bayou pronunciation. Like, surely is there not a producer in his ear being like, Adebayo? His name is Adebayo. Like,
he's also been in the league for like a decade too, Scal.
And we've played the Heat so many times.
Yeah.
Like, it's very Cedric Maxwell. What was Maxwell's Adebayo? I figured that out.
That's right. Yeah, friend of the show. But I digress. Peyton Pritchard got stuck on Bam Adebayo at one point, and Cornette just immediately called out the scram. They switched it before the Heat could take advantage of it, and that was just one instance of many throughout the game. The second quarter, I want to go out on a limb and say this is the best stretch of Celtics basketball in recent history. Better than third quarter Pelicans, better than overtime against the Timberwolves, because like we said, buckets were hard to come by. Jayson Tatum didn't have the most efficient shooting game, but to begin the second quarter, it was kind of Tatum and a modified bench lineup. Tatum hits those 2 pull-up threes early. He hits Hauser with that sweet dime on the cut. And like for the first half of the second quarter, and we'll get to the second half of that quarter, which is all the Derrick White show, it was all Jayson Tatum everywhere, both ends, just the beautiful game, a captain's knock, as we love to call it here. Sure, he had a few dot balls in this game, but he was hitting boundaries early in the second quarter there, as I know Spoonie likes to say. And it felt like the Heat sent 2 at Tatum way more in this game than they did in game 2, which was an odd decision, I thought, because we've clearly demonstrated, or Tatum has demonstrated his ability to take advantage of that kind of coverage. And he was just able to go straight back to it, passing the shit out of the ball. 6 assists in this one. Who knows how many potential assists. And it was just incredible second quarter from Jayson Tatum with this one.
Yeah, I just thought he was aggressive early, like willing to get downhill. And then if you're getting downhill, they have to send help. Like you can't not send help, or he's just going to have a layup line the entire game. And then you just build on that, and they're just like, well, this guy's going to cook us, so let's not let that happen. And then his passing, he has figured Miami's defense out, like full stop. They throw him all these goofy man looks. They throw him that 3-2, 2-3 hybrid zone. Does not matter. He's like hitting all these incredible passes. He had one. He was down in the near corner against the zone, and he just like took a dribble, like he was like half posting up, and he just like zips it to Drew Holiday across the entire defense. Drew takes like 2 dribbles, kicks it to Hauser. Hauser missed the open 3, but it's just like it's not. It can be kind of uncomplicated to beat a zone, right? Like just make the right decision. And it's going to be wide open because there's so many gaps in a zone. You can overload it with multiple guys that are one defender's responsibility. And I thought Tatum was just he was the Marcus Smart maestro out there, dude. Like he totally dominated this game, in my opinion, even though he only went 6 for 16 from the floor. The free throws, yikes, especially in the first half. I think he went like 3 of 6 in the first half from the line, but he pulled it together. Or in the first quarter, I think he missed 3. But regardless, he was really awesome, and I think he might even been better defensively. Like he was fucking everywhere on defense. Like a lot of the scram switching and things like that, he was just like covering for people nonstop, and his help out of the corners on drives. He's just so good at like sticking a hand in there, making the drive run comfortable. Then they have to like pick it up a little earlier than they want to, or move the ball, and all of a sudden the leaning tower of KP's is like, I'm here. Try and shoot it now, Tyler Hero, and they miss, or they just kick it out. So I thought he was just friggin' awesome, dude.
Yeah, he's so good at the help, at the nail, all over the place. Like he's like a lot of guys will kind of fake stunt to make sure they don't leave a shooter, but he is able, because he's so long, is able to actually impact the ball handler on the drive, while also, like, if the ball handler does make that pass, he's so good at recovering and getting a steal on that play as well. Like, he's switching 1 through 5. He's covering Bam. He had a block on Bam in the post. Like, this Heat team doesn't have a player that can switch onto Tatum and cook him. It's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, for him to go 6 of 16 and him to still be fantastic. That pass to Hauser, I have that clip here because that was
nice.
Both free throws good for Jaquez. 39-23. Celtics lead it by 16 here with 7:12 left. And Hauser on a great feed from Tatum.
Lefty.
Got the goggles out. Yeah.
Lefty.
Yeah, he's looked really good in this series, and like efficiency wise hasn't been there for him. But game 2, ironically, that was the game where he wasn't super efficient. I mean, was the most efficient. But yeah, the way that he controlled the game today, yesterday, and quarter 2, that's the thing right there. And we called for it. It was like Tatum's cooking all the. If they're going to switch everything, there's no one on this team outside of Bam that you feel that he shouldn't be attacking. And even Bam, he's like able to still, he's gotten stronger with the ball. He's gotten stronger just in general. He's able to get a shoulder down and then spray out to a shooter after someone helps a little bit. More Tatum and more Derrick White. I feel like that was the key to the second quarter. Those two guys, when they have the ball, that's when the team's at their best.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Derrick White, I mean, like, is definitely the next cab off the rank after Tatum. A 21-12 first quarter for the Celtics, but then, yeah, that 42-27 second quarter is really where our bread was buttered in this one. And, yeah, we talked about the little flourish from Tatum, particularly in the beginning of the second quarter. Then Derrick White, he finishes off the missed Jaylen Brown free throw, which I know you guys talked about on late night last night. And shout out to Sam LaFrance, by the way, for filling in for us on these late night shows to keep the ball rolling there. That's been awesome. Sam's great. And check out the How About Them Celtics podcast on YouTube and all the great shows under the CLNS umbrella, including Celtics Lab. We love those guys. But speaking of loving people, Derrick White, second half of that second quarter, couple of threes, that free throw tip in, doing all of the transition ball handling. I think that the Heat are known for pressuring guys full court and just forcing you to get into your offense a little later. And Derrick White, probably one of the few players, as elite as our top 7 are, one of the few players who can like truly handle that responsibility under the kind of duress that the Heat put you under. He was just incredible. And we finally got that D White emergence that we'd kind of been waiting for, that we got way earlier against the Hawks in the first round last year. Like, we had the Derrick White game in game 1 or 2. Derrick White just like completely balls out on the table. I'm taking the fuck over of this game. And then in the third quarter, I thought that's where his biggest shots were hit, because that's where the Heat was starting to come back, started to turn up their defensive intensity and find a little bit of offense themselves. And they cut it to 19 at one point, God forbid. And I know, but at the time, it
I was scared.
Yeah. What's the hashtag here from Jordan in the chat? Keep the clench. We retained the clench in that moment.
I got roasted by Derrick White's dad for tweeting something angry about the Celtics, and he's like, have a Foster's. And I'm like, he said, first, to be fair, I tweeted it during the game, and I said, fucking Celtics, please put them away. And then he said, after the game, we won by 20, have a Foster's. And everyone's roasted. I'm kind of getting roasted for it, which I should be, but like, everyone that's roasting me, guys, I'm tight with this is me and Mr. White's banter.
Boys.
You know, we're boys. This is a bit. I get freaked out. He settles me down. It's all good times.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
a beautiful.
White hit that like pull-up jumper in the third quarter. That was like a deep mid-range. That look, we say Sam Hauser's, the white Carmelo Anthony, Derrick White. That he looked like Carmelo Anthony on that shot. I mean, picture perfect pull-up jumper right over Jovic, which is just like a shot he never really takes. But the fact that, the Heat are cutting into the lead, like regardless if it was still 19, we all know we have the PTSD. Like, that's real, man. Like, I needed that shot to go in. I kind of want to see a little bit more Derrick White mid-range stuff, especially against teams like the Heat, where like I think you can just get to it and they'll just kind of let you have that shot sometimes. Give me some more Derrick White middies. And he had one finish, I think it was in the third quarter, where he's like, it almost, I don't know, he didn't stumble, but he looks kind of out of control, and he just like is like 6 feet away and banks it righty off glass and in. That was just like, that is so freaking hard to do with the defender draped all over you, and he just makes it look so easy. And it's like you said, Ben, critical juncture in the game like that. Those are huge baskets. Like clutch buckets don't just mean last 5 minutes of a 5-point game. Like, you miss that shot, they come down, they hit a 3, it's 16, the crowd's going, I don't know, wild for whatever a Heat crowd going wild is. Like, so like to me that, yay,
Let's go,
what
Heat.
happened? I was looking at my phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think like that, those were really a couple of really important buckets, and they weren't easy either, which I think is important for like where Derrick's mindset is.
Yeah, I just pulled those 2 buckets up, and they were in the third quarter, and they were back to back. It's Caleb Martin starts pressuring Derrick White like up the court, and Derrick White kind of flips, spins back the other way, goes right hand drive, and as you said, Caleb Martin's all over him, but probably was a foul. Finishes right hand, and this is why we want more Derrick White, because like for example, Bam is on Porzingis, right, and so Derrick and Porzingis run like a little screen action. Porzingis kind of just like slips it and pops, and Bam has to kind of respect Porzingis at the 3-point line. Jovic can't really hang, like as good as he's quite mobile for a 6'10" guy, but Derrick White, he's like, able to kind of crack him off the dribble, and Jovic is like, I've got it literally frozen right here. Derrick's pulled up, and Jovic is like kind of like slipping, like he's not even able to get a hand up before Derrick White rises, and that's the key. I think like so much to this team is like there's going to be attention. The best defenders are going to be on Jalen, Jayson, and Porzingis. Derrick is often going to have a mismatch, and like him being aggressive is always good for the Celtics, either as a ball handler or as a screener. Or so like just like with that mid-range pull-up, it wasn't necessarily a Derrick White isolation. Can we just get a screen from another player to come in, get a little bit of movement, Derrick attacks, or vice versa. Someone sets a screen, Drew set a couple of screens, and Derrick's he's so good at finding guys. If they're going to switch everything, guys are slipping these screens, those little over-the-top passes into the teeth of the defense. Guys come down, Drew Holiday pass it right back out to Derrick for a pull-up 3. It's just catch and shoot, bang, Derrick White, screening, touching the ball, Derrick White, more, always.
Yeah, a very mature stretch of basketball there in the third, and Derrick White, I guess our most mature player. Maybe Al Horford, you could throw him in that pile as well. But really good stuff at a time where those sphincters were getting a little tight there. I don't know, guys. Jake, what else stood out to you with this one?
I mean, just the fact that they didn't let the Heat get a rhythm at any point. Like there was the beginning of the third quarter. That was when I tweeted the angry thing. The fact that they didn't let anything snowball. And I think that the offense is going to be hard in this series and hard in the playoffs. Like, that's just the reality of playoff basketball. They stuck with the defense throughout the game. I didn't feel like at any point the Heat had a run. Like, I think that third quarter was like the closest they had to a run. But outside of that, it was like every time that there was a little bit of momentum, they got to something that I believed in. It didn't feel like there was consecutive or like extended stretches where I was like, what are they doing out there on either end? So I just thought it was a mentality game for these guys. I mean, another thing that stuck out to me, I haven't had time to fully watch the Gorman cut yet on playback.tv/Celtics blog. We were watching the game. They unfortunately don't have the local broadcast, so I haven't been able to watch the Gorman broadcast the last 2 games, which is annoying. But watching the second quarter just before, Pritchard was huge. Pritchard has like a drive on Caleb Martin to the rim, and he has that offensive rebound. Like, just that's all you need in the playoffs from like these role players to come off the bench and just have a tiny little spurt and hold off a run or extend a run. And Pritchard, solid, man. Like really, really big plays.
Dude, we had 5 turnovers. 5. That's nothing. And that's how the Heat go on runs. Like, that's all they can do because their half-court offense has actually been kind of effective as far as half-court offenses go in the playoffs. We have like the 9th or 12th, somewhere in between there, the 13th best half-court defense in the playoffs right now. But we also have by far the highest percentage of our defensive possessions are half-court possessions. And the worst transition offense is more efficient than the best half court offense. So if you keep the Heat in the half court, and I bet most of that is because of game 2 with their incredibly hot shooting. I bet if you took that game out, their half court offense has probably been dreadful. So you keep the Heat out of transition, you keep them in the half court, which we've been doing an incredible job. Like, we've mostly protected the defensive glass too, I think. They're just not going to have a lot for you unless they shoot 60% from 3. Which I'm not obviously not counting out that can happen again or maybe 2 more times. But that's a very difficult thing to do for games. And if the Celtics keep playing like this, I mean, their floor of performance will be really, really high. And I don't think they need to play their best game to beat the Heat. I mean, they haven't really played their best game outside of game 1. And a 10-point loss where the Heat shot an anomaly amount of threes, and then just a wire-to-wire kind of shit stomping in game 2, where we don't even think we cracked 30% from 3. Yeah, 29.7% from 3. So you just keep them out of transition, don't turn it over. You're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I thought our transition defense was really locked in. Our semi-transition defense as well. There were multiple instances where we either turned it over there were multiple instances where off a missed shot, we would off a Heat missed shot. I'm completely butchering this. We would just completely stop them from getting up the court. There was one Heat baseline out of bounds play under the basket where we forced them to throw it completely away, like they threw it over all of their offensive players into our backcourt, just like completely gave up the ball. There were multiple instances where the Heat would just straight up shitty in this game and just threw the ball away. And yeah, credit our defense, but I thought we forced them into a higher amount of errors, particularly when they were in transition. But then there were an equal amount of instances where it seemed like they just coughed the ball up or dribbled it off their foot or threw it out of bounds from an unforced error perspective as well. So the Heat, they are going to be better. We are going to get to the game 4 adjustments and what both teams will change moving forward. But like, this was far from the Heat's best game, despite our turned up defensive intensity as well. So the Heat will come out better in that game 4. I do just want to circle back on Peyton Pritchard a little bit, because I felt like he was like not solely, but hugely the antidote to the Heat's like physicality and like alpha kind of energy, for lack of a better term. Pritchard came out, he was like yelling at guys. Oh, Pete, amazing. Thank you, sir,
Hero.
for the super chat there. What a legend. Shout out to the nation of Latvia and Pete in the chat. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Appreciated Peyton Pritchard in this one. Really, with just his energy, his physicality. There's the best layer on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. He was just such a difference maker in this game and keeping up our intensity and kind of staving off the Heat's intensity. I thought, like, kind of for once, we were clearly the alphas in this one. And to me, Pritchard, PP, spearheaded that.
Yeah, Tatum talked about it in the presser as well, like being the team that hit first. And Pritchard, dog. Just definition, man. Like, doesn't matter. Defensively, he had a possession where he posted up on Jovic and forced an out of bounds, and then they got to reset and close out the defensive possession. He just brings it everywhere, man. Like, I still can't get over the fact that, like, he ends up 3 for 5, like 7 points off the bench. You take that every day of the week, but like, he doesn't need to score a lot coming off the bench, which is crazy for a 6'1" dude. Like, that's whole job really, I thought, was going to be shooting to still have an impact. Like, the offensive rebounding, 2 offensive rebounds again here today. Like, that just has to drive you absolutely nuts if you're a Heat fan. I love the little bits of this team, like hitting back Heat style. You know, Derrick White getting the offensive rebound, throwing some PTSD back in the Heat's face for once, and Pritchard kind of like doing the dirty work that, like, if you're going to do the little dirty things as well, or like better than the Heat, then they do not have the horses to keep up. And that's exactly the role and the job of Pritchard and Hauser, and Pritchard's built for it. He just sneaks through all these little cracks, offense, defense. I thought he was much more aggressive in this game. Love to see it.
Yeah, it just felt like he junked up the Heat's offense at times, which is crazy for a guy who, like, people probably consider a bad defender. He's not, but my guess is if you asked a fan of another team whether he's like okay at defense, they'd probably say absolutely not. But he can just stick with guys. Like, he just keeps everything in front of him. And outside a Hero who isn't much bigger than Pritchard, so it's not like he's going to be spotting, you know, pull-ups in Pritchard's face. Like, none of these dudes have the handle to really create against him, so they're just going to kind of, I'll live with Jovic shooting over the top of Pritchard or Caleb Martin. I mean, he's just going to be there. And I felt like he was like knocking balls loose, which just like, even if you don't get the steal, it just slows their offense and like messes up the timing. And you almost have to like reset the whole possession. All of a sudden there's like 9 seconds on the shot clock left and Duncan Robinson has the ball. And all of a sudden the shot clock is now expiring because he didn't get the shot off, which I think happened twice in game 3. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, he was really awesome. And yeah, like Hauser, we talked a lot about, hey, you know, maybe the defense won't translate. Maybe they'll do a really good job of attacking him. They kind of have, but he hasn't been unplayable. I do think Joe's sort of protecting him a little bit because his minutes have been. He got the most minutes, I think, of the series in game 3, but he's been clearly the 8th guy, with Pritchard being like the absolute bang on 7th guy, sometimes playing more minutes than Horford. So Joe clearly trusts him, and I think for good reason.
Well, maybe we're about to say the same thing, Jake, but that's clearly, I think, to me, other than like you must and will shoot a whole bunch of threes in game 2, going at Hauser and putting him in screens has been the most intentional thing that the Heat have done offensively, I think. But like you said, we've protected him to the point where he's still largely, obviously not referring specifically to his plus minus here, but from a zoomed out, I guess, anecdotal perspective, he's been a net positive to the team just in how he's been able to stretch out the Heat's zone, which again, we're going to get to in our URP segment after we're done recording here. I think he's been an overall net positive for the Celtics on both ends, despite the Heat kind of going at him a little bit. Now, look, we've got to get to this ad read, but I also feel like we could just keep talking about this game easily for another 20 minutes. Why don't we go around the room one more time? One final point. It could be an individual player. It could be another adjustment that you're looking at on game 3. We'll get to our ad break and we'll come back and talk about game 4 and the rest of the league. I'll start. I think clearly it has to be mentioned the turnover disparity and the points off turnovers. Spoonie, you mentioned the Celtics only had 5 turnovers. The Heat had 12. The Celtics had 24 points off of turnovers, which
That's
mathematically,
awesome.
It's not hard to determine. That's basically a bucket off each turnover there, which is just incredible efficiency from the Celtics. And normally it's the inverse of that. If you think back historically, these matchups against the Heat, they're handsy in the paint, they turn you over, they get out in transition and they score. That's like one of the only ways they've been able to generate offense. For the Celtics to have that incredible second quarter, which I'm calling the best stretch of Celtics basketball in recent history, and turn the Heat over that many times and score that efficiently off those turnovers in a must-win game, incredible.
Yeah.
I had Al Horford. I think just shout out to the big dog. He comes out. He only goes 1 for 4 in this game here, but the defense that he's playing, connecting the group together, I feel very safe with him out there. I've enjoyed the KP Porzingis lineups as well. I feel like when they're out there together, I feel like they've got a lot of size. They're just dominating the glass on that end, and yeah, just Al Horford and the fact that they're keeping him in that 22-minute range. They did a good job with everybody's minutes yesterday because they ended up blowing them out. But like KP, under 30 minutes, Horford, 22 minutes, 1 day off, should be fresh to take the 3-1 lead.
So Drew Holiday went 1 for 5. I thought this was like clearly his best game of the series. Yes. And I think he had 6 assists, and like it wasn't like, hey Drew, take the ball and make a play, and we're gonna put you in pick and roll. It wasn't like that type of playmaking, which I felt like he tried to do a little bit too much of in game 2, especially. It was like the ball gets swung to him, he drives a closeout, or he like finds the gap in the zone and gets to the middle and makes the right pass. It was kind of the type of playmaking that we want Drew Holiday to be doing. One of these days, his shot's going to really start falling in the playoffs, too. I bet it's going to happen. But I thought he was like a much, much better defensive performance from him. He had a ton of closeouts where he like the closeout hard, but he did it under control, so he didn't concede a straight line drive either. So I thought he was just like really, really solid, which is all we need from him.
Maybe round 2 is when things start to kick in for Drew.
Yeah,
or maybe the
right?
finals.
Sure.
Well, it'll happen eventually. We just got to hang on long enough. Now, look, we're going to come back and talk about Game 4 adjustments and a look around the league at other playoff series going on. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments of college college basketball tip-off in the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. And get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can even make the play-in rounds seem interesting since we all know the Celtics won't be there. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Personally, I'm looking at Derrick White more on points because they are criminally low, and we all know Derrick White is going to come up big in the postseason. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100.
That's right. Download Prize Picks, use that code CLNS for a first deposit match of $100 and supplement your hoops viewing experience. It's a lot of fun. Spoonie and Jake and I have had a little round robin of less or more picks on various little game situations and just spicing up our mostly digital relationship as Celtics content creators. It's been a lot of fun. So make sure you check out Prize Picks. Use that code CLNS for a first deposit match of $100. Now, guys, game 4. I'll just start with my smooth brain take. And then maybe it'll stand up. I don't know if it's that smooth brain. Adjustment-wise, the Heat, don't they just kind of have to go back to shooting a fuckload of threes? Is it that simple?
It's their only chance. It's their only chance is that to suppress the Celtics 3-point attempts and to get 3-point attempts up. And in game 2, the Celtics shot 37, the Heat shot 28. It's way more about the attempts than the percentage because I do agree. I think that they, especially early, they did miss a couple, and you wonder, does the game look a little bit differently if they're able to get a couple of those to go down? I still think defensively they would have been able to squash the Heat at some point, but 3-point attempts, one way or another, I think what you can control is their attempts. I think they're gonna try and run you off the line and contain one-on-one better than they did in game 1, but defensively on the Celtics side, you have to just guard your yard. That's I hate to just make it that simple, but it's they have the ability to deal with these guys. There's not talented enough to get up enough 3-point attempts if you're really locked in defensively. They shouldn't be. It's Tyler Hero, he's a legit good pick and roll ball handler, but he does not shoot a high enough percentage on pull-up threes consistently on super high volume with guys like Derrick, Drew, Jalen chasing him around and making him work on the other end. That absolutely, Ben, just keep the attempts down. Funnel the ball into Bam. If he goes 12 for 20, that's you're just not going to lose on 24 points on 20 shots from Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, the only thing I can think we might see is inverted pick and rolls where Bam is the ball handler. And maybe hope that can make KP, 1, drag out of the paint so he can't just sit as a rim protector, and 2, make him defend in space, right? Because we are not, when Bam sets the screen, KP is just basically in drop unless it's an emergency situation, and we're just parking him at the rim as much as we possibly can. That might be one way they can kind of generate that, because if we leave KP in drop, then it gets really weird with Hero's setting the screen, then our dudes, it's kind of really strange. It could probably make us a little uncomfortable, but also you can just go under on him, and so maybe he gets a runway and can get himself to the rim, and then we got to send help, and he's a pretty good passer. So I don't know. That's really the only thing that they haven't tried yet that I thought maybe is something they could do. Is just they looked their best when KP was uncomfortable. And that's, I think, one way they could maybe make him look uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that they just have to double down on making life difficult for KP because life looks so difficult for our entire team when that was the case. And so I worry, as I tend to do, that the Heat are going to really turn up the physicality and the intensity to a risky level as far as KP not becoming injured in some way. I just feel like it's not an unethical approach to be really, really physical with a guy who has wavered in the past from being on the receiving end of that physicality. But I worry about to what extent do they need to turn up the volume there to make life difficult for KP, to what extent can we survive that? Which is probably a little bit melodramatic on my part, but we are kind of clutching at straws as far as what the Heat can do, and I think they really do need to double down on that approach. Fortunately, we saw KP have a really strong sort of mental and physical bounce back to that level of play in this most recent game, in Game 3. It looks like KP has sort of adjusted his approach to how he defends Bam Adebayo. So even if they do get Bam downhill going at KP, I sort of trust him now to not bite on his fakes and not get too drawn into being in early foul trouble. We'll see how that goes. At least we know that we've got healthy Luke Cornett positive, to come in for a 5-minute spell if shit does hit the fan there. But yeah, it's going to have to be making KP really uncomfortable. It's going to have to be jacking up a fuckload of threes, essentially the game 2 approach. You try and dust that off and have a go at that again. Meanwhile, I think the Celtics are going to be doing everything they can to redo their best rendition of Game 3, which was limiting the Heat's 3-point attempts, being really physical with them. Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench, being the alpha. Essentially, I think Sam had this on late night last night, Jake, which is just out-heating the Miami Heat rather than the Heat out-Celticsing the Celtics.
Yeah, look, because the Heat stuff is in their control, right? Being gritty, being tough, being physical. Can you match that? Also, KP did touch on it in how the Heat are trying to drag him into this physicality thing and trying to frustrate him. And KP did a good job of kind of flailing around yesterday. He drew a few fouls on them kind of bumping him off ball and stuff. Keep grifting. That's what I would say. Because he's not going to win a physicality battle necessarily. Trying to go, ass for ass with Bam Adebayo, as we know, just somewhat lighter in that area. So keep doing what you're doing. Try to play your game, flop around a little bit, grift a little bit. But yeah, don't get frustrated. Don't force it. Get the ball up high, kick the ball back out. For me, it's tempo. You talked about the points off turnovers. Who knows if you're going to get 12-5? You're probably going to get 10-ish turnovers again. Make sure you're running off those. Make sure you're running off misses. That's something you can control. Defensively, I think we know the game plan. It's just stay locked in. Be tight on your communication. Maybe do we see a Jalen on Tyler Hero thing? I know you talked about that, Spoonie. But defensively, I think we know the game plan. But offensively, can we get going? Because we were elite in Game 1. We were pretty good in Game 2 first half. Struggled Game 2 second half. And this game, I don't think the process was necessarily that bad, but obviously 29% from 3. Relatively good volume of threes, 37 3-point attempts. I think that's fine. The number of possessions in a game like this is going to be a little bit lower. I don't hate being 35 plus in 3-point attempts, but can we be better? Can we be 33% from 3? Because I think if we can get to the 33, 34, 35% from 3, if we have a good offensive performance while still being good defensively, then it's probably curtains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just keep the ball in Tatum's hands, man. Just keep letting him run the show along with Derrick, and just keep the ball away from Drew Holiday unless it is off the catch and he's taking a pull-up or driving a closeout. I think those are my keys right there.
Just
Agreed.
Going home up 3-1 compared to going home tied 2-2, there's just such a difference there. Just crazy opportunity to just wrap up the series. Obviously, this is in no way an analytical take, just kind of typical of me, but please just win the fucking thing.
No, obviously,
it's so important. It's such an important juncture of the game. Treat this like you treated Game 3. Is it a must-win? I mean, it's not really a must-win, but it also is kind of a must-win, right? In terms of just setting yourself up for success down the line, long-term in the playoffs here.
I can't get there. I can't get there with the must-win.
They're all must-wins.
I think Game 3 was way more of a must-win than Game 4 was a must-win. Obviously, we want to, this is a huge game. This is a massive pivot point in any series. Any series that's 2-1, it's Game 4 is one of the most pivotal games of a series. Not great analysis, but 3-1, very different to being 2-2 for either team. So, this is the series. This can have an impact on your outlook for the rest of the playoffs. Can you go up 3-1 coming back home to Boston where you can close it out in 5 and everyone's feeling really good? And we're going to talk about how the rest of the conference and league is shaping up and how wrapping this series up in 5 is really important. Obviously things can be out of your control, but can you come out, control what you can control and win the freaking game, demoralize them 3-1 back to the Garden.
Please win.
Don't go Hawks on us and lose
Yes.
lose game 5 at home, please.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yes.
right. No ice tray in the garden. And Terry Rozier is confirmed out for Game 4. DeLon Wright is probable, and I think that's the extent of the health report for both teams. There's no reported injuries for the Celtics at all, which is great. Touch wood. Hopefully it stays that way. And let's segue now to around the league. And I'm just seeing now on the timeline as we're recording this pod that Middleton is now out of this Bucks Pacers game as well.
Wow.
I don't have any of the details. Maybe
Game
he's been
2.
ejected like Bobby Portis was, or maybe he's injured. I'm seeing a lot of we're cursed tweets from Bucks fans, so I'm guessing he's injured. Portis obviously ejected earlier in the game. Dame out, Giannis out. Things are looking pretty grim for the Bucks there, Jake.
Yeah, I'm seeing a quick clip of Middleton limping after he did something. Chris Middleton tried a reverse layup on the baseline and went to the ground after it. So he's back to the locker room. Obviously, yeah, I'd feel pretty cursed too, man. I mean, Giannis goes down with the calf before the season. Dame's out with an Achilles strain. Bobby Portis just got ejected, and now Middleton's out. I will say, though, it's 66-70 right now. Well, obviously, whoever's listening to this podcast will know the result of this game. This is Doc Rivers turns into Spoelstra in these. This is
Yes.
the funny thing about Doc is that he refuses to coach any team that doesn't have multiple Hall of Famers on it to make sure that his teams are at least competent. But all of his best coaching performances are when he's shorthanded. He always does that's why he should maybe be the one coaching the Hornets next season and not Charles Lee or JJ Redick. But alas, obviously kind of a big deal. The Pacers should win this game. By the time we finish this, we won't have any idea really by the time this podcast finishes, but this is obviously huge.
Yeah, massive. I hope Middleton's all right.
Of course.
But I don't know. Man, at some point, this is just kind of who somebody is, right? They always just get hurt, and when you build your team around one of those dudes as a founded, look at the Clippers with Kawhi. You count on those dudes to be your top, in your top 3. You are absolutely playing with fire. We're playing with fire with Porzingis. Never mind, I'm not going to say the next sentence I was about to say. So it sucks, but also, and you build your team around a mid-30s scoring point guard. That's the kind of stuff that happens, man. That's why you want guys in their prime and not dudes who are in their mid to late 30s. So it sucks for the Bucks. I mean, they probably will win this game because and the NBA is stupid. But I hope he's all right, and we'll just see. What did Portis do? Do we know?
It was over the they shouldn't have ejected him probably,
Okay,
but
all right.
he pushed Nem hard, which he got the 1 tech for, and then he kind of swiped at his head, not like a punch, but just kind of
Get out of here, buddy.
Tried to kind of grab his head, and it kind of ended up being a slap to the head. So they gave him 2 separate technicals for the one altercation.
That's a cop out.
Yeah, I agree. So, but they needed him, and now he's gone. And again, talking about going up 3-1 versus tying the series of if the Bucks can somehow squeeze this thing out, next thing you know, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe Giannis is back for game 5 or back for game 6, and the series they just hold on just long enough, and then all of a sudden they're back to form for the next round. It's hard to say.
I despise the Bucks, but I would not wish this on my worst enemy. It's just a brutal cascading run of bad injury luck. But we're getting word in the chat here that Middleton is back on the court, so hopefully everything's okay there. Moving on to the Nuggets series, where LeBron had one of his infamous on-the-court tantrums, this time directed at his own bench when they didn't challenge an out-of-bounds play. But the big news coming out of that, I know, it's hilarious.
The worst.
Love to see it. What you don't love to see is injury coming from anywhere, and the big news coming out of this one is Jamal Murray. He's questionable for Game 5 with a calf strain, which can be one of those lingering, debilitating injuries. And again, want to reiterate, you don't wish injury on anybody, but it takes a lot of luck on the other side of the coin to win a championship or to even be in position to win a championship. The Nuggets looked upon as one of the biggest challenges or threats to the Celtics' potential finals run, and you see this come up, and it does make your I always find it difficult to talk about this delicately. Again, don't wish injury on anybody, but as a Celtics fan, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting because maybe it improves our overall chances of winning a title.
This is how it goes, dude. If Rob's knees work, you have a title already, and we win that Golden State series. Like, this is the reality. The Raptors don't win a title without Kevin Durant blowing his Achilles and Clay blowing his ACL in the same series. It's the reality of the title. The Bucks don't have a title without Harden and Kyrie getting injured. And look, the Nuggets have been playing with their food for a while now. Like, they blew the number 1 seed by losing to the Spurs in the last week of the season. They, in every game in this Lakers series, have kind of looked like shit in the first half. Jamal Murray, even before this, had not looked good. Obviously has that insane game winner, and they have that massive 20-point comeback. But again, haven't looked good, really, like, compared to what they're capable of. And then they look like shit again in game 4, and they're like, yeah, who cares? We can go back to Denver and win that one. Well, the Nuggets in particular, like, or any team loses their second best player, and they're going to struggle. Like, the Murray-Jokic 2-man game is the reason they're so elite. So losing him is a problem. But anytime they've had one of their 5 guys out, they have not looked the same. They are not a deep team. Then now you're relying more on Peyton Watson or Reggie Jackson, who have been fine, but not anywhere near like that 5-man unit is just so ridiculous and fits so well together. You take one out, especially Jamal Murray, that's a real problem. You think about what the Lakers have done. Can they steal one more? All of a sudden, they go 6. The Wolves win today. They sweep. They're rested as a team that can challenge the Nuggets. You start to draw up like Nuggets kind of fucked around here, and maybe they're going to screw themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that 5-man group for the Nuggets is by net rating one of the very best in the NBA, especially of like super high minutes units. So that'll be tough for them. Like, hey, I said Nuggets in 6, so at least I'm looking less stupid that it might actually get to 6. I thought it was about to be a sweep, but I actually really like Jamal Murray. I think he's got a really just kind of fun, sort of unique game. So that sucks, and I don't want to see the Lakers win any more games than they need to either. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, that West is gonna be brutal. Like, I mean, the Mavs and the Clippers don't look amazing, but I also think they can kind of make teams play down to them, especially the Clippers. They just have so many like wings and bodies that they can throw at teams. So it's not going to be easy for the Nuggets to get out, even with a healthy Jamal Murray. And yeah, you said it, Ben, like these soft tissue injuries they just don't go away unless you really rest it, and you can't really afford to do that in the playoffs.
Yeah, a timely Eric Weiss comment in the chat as well.
Probably.
Like, Denver most likely going to annihilate LA in game 5, regardless of Jamal Murray's status. But at this point, we're just looking to make the Nuggets work a little bit. And so, hate to extend an olive branchy kind of praise to the Lakers, but thank you for extending that series by at least one game. Look, we're basically out of time here, guys, but I'll give you both a shot at this. Like, what other series around the league currently stands out to you at the moment? We've had some spiciness with the Sixers today going down 3-1 and extremely dirty plays, multiple dirty plays by Joel Embiid. And then we don't want to look ahead too far, but the Magic Cavs series is also looking pretty interesting.
Yeah, we're not looking ahead. Our sphincters are tightened, but we can both tighten our sphincters and notice that Cavs Magic, that both teams look not very good. And the fact that the Magic have evened that thing up at 4. Celtics, finish this in 5. That series is going to go minimum 6. It's probably going to go 7. That series is probably going to go 7, and 2 like really good defensive teams, and both teams like with offensive issues are going to come out of that thing like bruised and battered. Just finish this thing as fast as you can. Lock in, because that series, neither of those teams look very good. Just come on. That's what I'm looking at. Like, those guys, I'm glad that the Cavs evened it up, because that's going 7.
Yeah, I think so too. And I've probably watched the most of the Magic Cavs series of any other first round series.
Sicko.
I love the Magic, dude. I got Franz and Paulo are 2 of my keepers in fantasy. I've watched way too much Magic this season. And I love Jalen Suggs is awesome too. So yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I think it's going 7, and I think it's a total coin toss on who wins that game 7. So that'll be interesting, but I think we match up better with both of those teams than maybe we do against even this version of the Heat, frankly. Just because I think we can spread them out. I don't think their defense can really stop us, and I think they would have a lot of trouble scoring. So I think I'd probably rather play the Magic just because Donovan Mitchell scares me, but he's been terrible. So
he's been bad.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So Ira Winderman, the Heat, one of the Heat beat reporters, just tweeted out, Kevin Love says the Heat have a, quote, way better game plan for Monday. There you go. Jake's all over it. I assume that's you, Jake.
Yes.
Could be Spoonie. Sorry,
Yes.
Spoonie.
No, it's not. It's not.
So we'll see. Not a lot of detail there from K Love. I suspect it might continue to include not playing Kevin Love or Duncan Robinson very many minutes because they were both shockingly terrible. But we can hope for more than that. We can hope for some Kevin Love and some Duncan Robinson for us to go at with our offense. So we'll see. But look, let's wrap it up there. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back live on the First to the Floor YouTube channel for Celtics Late Night after Game 4. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review on your preferred podcast platform, and check out the How About Them Celtics podcast, the Celtics Lab podcast, and all of the awesome content under the CLNS Network umbrella. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love